Welcome students. We'll continue with the type amphioxus. Here in this session we will deal with the respiration and blood vascular system of amphioxus. So coming to the respiratory system of amphioxus, we can see that in the case of amphioxus there is no respiratory pigment is present, and so the transport of oxygen is and carbon dioxide is not that easy as in the case of other vertebrates. So respiratory pigment is nothing but they are certain molecules, proteins which can help the conjugated proteins or any conjugated proteins which can help the transport of oxygen more easy than without them. So such a pigment is our hemoglobin. So such type of respiratory pigments are absolutely absent in the case of amphioxus. And here in this case of these forms, what we can see is we see a large pharynx is the main structure what we can see in the body of amphioxus with lot of gill slits. And we suppose that it is a main respiratory organ, but it is not so, because this pharynx is mainly concerned with the transport and the formation of food vacuoles, food vesicles in the case of amphioxus, and for the separation of water from the food particles, they require large number of cilia is beating and they need lot of energy. So the water, the pharynx is not at all involved in the respiratory function, and we can say that the respiratory function of pharynx is doubtful. And also the specialty is that if the respiratory gas exchange takes place within the gill slits or the Gilbar region, there must be large number of blood capillaries present here. But we can see here that when we deal with the blood vascular system, that there is low number of capillary network are also absent in the case of Gilbars. So the pharynx is not the main respiratory organ, or if the function of pharynx as respiratory organ is doubtful. The main respiratory organs in the case of amphioxus are skin, their fins, metapleural folds and atrial wall. And the respiration is as in all the other cases, the process involved is a simple diffusion. Okay, so coming to the case of blood vascular system. So here in the case of amphioxus, it is a simple closed type of circulation we can be seen. Here in these forms, there is no specialized heart present, and here blood cells are absolutely absent. Blood is colorless. And another specialty what we can see here is the blood vessels are not internally lined by endothelium. In most of the vertebrates, we can see that blood vessels are internally lined by endothelium. And this endothelium is only present in the case of when they come branch and come to the capillary network, making the diffusion easy. So such an endothelial lining is absent in most of the blood vessels, except in the case of dorsal aorta. And the main functions of blood vascular system are, as you know, they are the transportation of respiratory gases, food and excretory products. Now coming to the main blood vessels, they are all contracted. So the absence of heart is replaced by the contractile nature of blood vessel that itself maintain the flow of blood. And here we cannot differentiate arteries and veins, but we can differentiate in them because of their similarity with the higher vertebrates. And important parts of blood vascular system are sinus venosus, ventral aorta, dorsal aorta, subintestinal vein and hepatic portal vein, cardinal veins and parietal veins. These are the main different parts of blood vascular system. So blood vascular system, we will continue with each and every part of the blood vascular system in detail. So coming to the blood vascular system's first part, that is sinus venosus. You can see in this diagram, this is the sinus venosus, and you can see that here it is the anterior side of the animal, and this is the posterior side. Okay, so what we can see here is this is a pharyngeal region. So it itself denotes that this is a anterior region of the body, and it is a caudal vein. It shows that it is a tail region. Okay, so what we can see here is sinus venosus, location of sinus venosus, and you must have learned the digestive system in detail. So you must know the structure called midgut diverticulum or the hepatic diverticulum. Okay, so here it is a thin-walled sac which is seen below the pharynx. So this is the pharynx, and below the pharynx what we can see here is a thin-walled sac which is called as a sinus venosus, or we can see it as a just above the midgut diverticulum. So this is a structure called sinus venosus. And sinus venosus, the main function of the sinus venosus is it collects blood from different parts of the amphioxus body and it pumps forward. So that's why it is called as sinus venosus, like the sinus venosus we can see in the case of lower vertebrates like frog. So it collects blood from different parts of the body and carry them to the, or it gives the blood to the heart. So here the sinus venosus in the case of these amphioxus also, location is below the pharynx or just above the midgut diverticulum, a thin-walled sac. It collects blood from different parts of the body and they carry the blood towards the anterior side. So it lack any cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles or other structures are absent, but it is similar to the higher chordates in their function. That's why it is known as the sinus venosus. So the function of sinus venosus, it collects blood from these are the different blood vessels carrying. This is one blood vessel, this is another blood vessel, this is another one, this is another one. So all these blood vessels are giving blood to the sinus venosus. So see here, from the sinus venosus, blood is carried towards this anterior side. So this blood vessel is called as ventral aorta. So what we can see here is there is a sinus venosus present, and from the sinus venosus a ventral aorta is going through the pharyngeal region towards the anterior side. Now this so next part is about the ventral aorta. So ventral aorta, it extends from the sinus venosus, and from this diagram what we can see here is it is just opposite of the previous diagram. That is, this side is the anterior side and this is the posterior side. Don't confuse with the two diagrams. Just see this diagram in this picture, because the other diagram was taken not to show you the sinus venosus, the special position of the sinus venosus. So it is somewhat here it is the present the structure called sinus venosus. So here sinus venosus is present. So from the sinus venosus, so sinus venosus collecting blood from all these blood vessels. We will deal with them in detail later. So from the sinus venosus, this is a sac-like structure present. From itself, it is carried to the anterior side by this duct which is called as the ventral aorta. So ventral aorta carrying blood towards the anterior side. Okay. So ventral aorta is otherwise known as subendostellar vessel. So you just remember at least one name, that is a ventral aorta. Okay. So ventral aorta, what happens is it goes anteriorly. Okay. And when it goes anteriorly, at the anterior end, it divides into two external carotid arteries. Okay. So from the sinus venosus, ventral aorta arises, and this ventral aorta goes anteriorly, and it at the anterior end, it bifurcates into two external carotid arteries. And on its way, when it passes through the pharyngeal region, it gives off branches to the primary gilbars. Okay. So when it passes through the pharyngeal region, it gives off branches to the primary gilbars. So these branches are called afferent branchial arteries. What they are called? They are called afferent branchial arteries. And this, just you can see here in this diagram, that is just after the emergence, there are swollen regions can be seen. These swollen regions are called as the bulbillus. And bulbillus or bulbuli, what is their role is, here like our we pump water using motor pump to our tanks. Likewise, here the blood has to move from the lower side to the upper side or the upper side. So what here we need is, to pump the blood, we need some pulsatile organs. So here this bulbillus. So what we can see is the ventral aorta. Ventral aorta on its way gives off branches to pharyngeal gilbar region, which is called as the afferent branchial arteries. And this afferent branchial arteries, after emergence from the ventral aorta, it gives us small swollen regions, which is called as bulbillus. In singular, bulbuli in plural. So this bulbuli, then after the formation of bulbuli, it goes the same way as the afferent artery. Then it goes up and joins the another artery called the lateral aorta, lateral dorsal aorta. It joins with the another aorta. You will see the next diagram. So what happens is, so bulbuli or the present, then after they doesn't form any capillaries. So these afferent arteries doesn't form any capillaries, leave the pharynx as such, and they will enter the lateral dorsal aorta. See, this is one lateral dorsal aorta, and the other is the other lateral dorsal aorta. That is, for we can see in the when we take the body in the body as this, we can see that on this side there is pharyngeal gill slits are present, and on the opposite side also pharyngeal gill slits. So on the both sides there is lateral dorsal aorta. So from the each side, or the right and left side, we can call it as this lateral dorsal, this afferent artery, branchial arteries join the lateral dorsal aorta as efferent branchial arteries. Okay, so they arise, the branches which arises from the ventral aorta are called as afferent branchial arteries. The branches or the blood vessels which join the lateral dorsal aorta are called as efferent branchial arteries. Okay, just before the joining with the lateral dorsal aorta, they are also forming some structures which are called as the glomus, a network of capillaries which is called as the glomus. So here on the lower side, on the lateral, the ventral aorta, there are bulbuli present, which are the pulsating structures for pumping the blood. And when it joins, efferent branchial arteries joins the lateral dorsal aorta, there is glomus present. Okay, so I think there is no confusion. That is, sinus venosus here collects blood from different regions. It carries blood towards the anterior end through the lower pharyngeal region. It is called as a ventral aorta. Ventral aorta gives off branches to pharynx in the form of afferent branchial arteries. On its way, it forms the bulbuli. Then it goes off without any capillaries. Then it joins the lateral dorsal aorta. And before formation, it forms the glomus. And when it joins the lateral dorsal aorta, it is called as efferent branchial arteries. Okay. Now, this dorsal aorta. So, dorsal aorta is on the dorsal side of the pharynx. So, we have seen the ventral aorta on the ventral side of the body, and when we can see the dorsal aorta on the dorsal side of the body. So, dorsal side of the dorsal aorta are of two types. One which is seen on above and in front of the pharynx is a lateral dorsal aorta, and after the pharynx towards the posterior end, it is called as a median dorsal aorta. So, first we will deal with the lateral dorsal aorta. So, lateral dorsal aorta receives blood from efferent branchial arteries, and it continues towards the anterior end as internal carotid arteries. Internal carotid arteries. Here in the case of ventral aorta, we have seen that external carotid arteries. Here in the case of lateral dorsal aorta, they are continuing as the internal carotid arteries. Okay, so they supply blood to the oral hood region. Now, this lateral dorsal aorta of both the sides, they joins after the pharynx and they continues posteriorly as the median dorsal aorta. So, lateral dorsal aorta for both sides join after the pharynx, they continues posteriorly as the median dorsal aorta. Okay, this median dorsal aorta. Then, when it goes towards the posterior side, it is called as the caudal artery. Now, it is called as the caudal artery. Now, this caudal artery, when it goes posteriorly, it gives off, there are large number of myotomes. We know that there are myotomes present throughout the body of the Amphioxus. So, they gives off segmental arteries to myotomes and body wall. So, median dorsal aorta, when it gives off branches to mesenteric arteries to intestine. These are the mesenteric arteries. It gives off small arteries, intestinal artery, otherwise known as the mesenteric arteries, and they form plexus. Plexus means a large number of capillaries gathered together, which is called as the intestinal